Here begins videotape number 1 in a deposition of Dr. C. Timothy Bessent in the matter of Kevin Tolson versus St. Agnes Healthcare, Inc. et al. In the Circuit Court for Baltimore City, Maryland, case number 24C12008071. Today's date is February 7, 2014, and the time on the video is 10:11 a.m. This video deposition is taking place at 7 St. Paul Street, Baltimore, Maryland. My name is Paul Cannon, and I am the videographer. The court reporter is Stephanie Stern, and we are with Merrill Reporting. Would the attorneys please identify themselves and whom they represent?
Rodney M. Gaston, I represent Kevin Tolson.
Danielle Dinsmore, present on behalf of defendants Prudence Jackson, MD, Kruppa Shaw, PA, and Maryland Provo 1 Medical Services, PC.
Mary Pat McGuire on behalf of defendant St. Agnes Healthcare, Inc. and Caroline Stell, RN.
The court reporter will now swear in a witness.
Hereby solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony of any give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Good morning, Doctor.
Morning, sir.
My name is Rodney Gaston, and I represent Mr. Tolson in an action that's pending in the Circuit Court for Baltimore City against Dr. Jackson, Ms. Shaw, and Maryland Provo 1. Could you please state your name and business address?
Yes, it's C. Timothy Bessent, B-E-S-S-E-N-T, and for the purposes of this deposition, it's my home address, which is 5218 Spring Lake Way, Baltimore, Maryland, 21212.
Okay. Doctor, have you had your deposition taken before?
I have.
I just want to go over briefly some of the rules for the deposition so we can make an accurate record. If at any time you don't understand the question that I ask you, please stop me, let me know. Otherwise, we'll assume that you've understood the question and that you've answered appropriately. Anytime you need to take a break, just let us know. Also, I would also ask that all your responses be verbal. The court reporter cannot take down a shake of the head or a nod. And I'll also ask if you could simply wait until I finish asking my question before you answer. That way the court reporter can take an accurate record. Does that sound fair?
Sounds reasonable.
Okay. Doctor, you brought with you some documents today. Can you just simply read the title of those documents into the record for us?
Certainly.
As to what they are?
Certainly. I have medical records from the emergency department visit of 12/3/09. I have, these from St. Agnes. I have medical records for the inpatient admission from 12/5 to 12/8/09. I have a number of depositions. Those depositions are as follows: Kevin Tolson, Paul Collier, Prudence Jackson, Kruppa Shaw, Caroline Steele, Kevin Tolson, and there should be one other, William Woodruff. And I have, the other things that I have are correspondence from Anderson Cohen King to me, and I have, you want me to list these other things? I brought my CV, and I brought my certificate of merit, and I think that's got it.
Okay. And Doctor, it looks like your CV has been marked as exhibit number 5, and your certificate of merit has been marked as exhibit number 4. Would
That
that
is
be
correct.
I want to show you what's been marked as exhibit number 1. And I'll ask if you've seen that document before today.
No.
Okay. Doctor, exhibit number 1 is the amended notice of your videotape deposition, and attached to that notice was a request for you to bring certain documents. Unfortunately, it's not on that page, but did you bring any documents with you other than what you have in front of you?
No, I brought everything that I have concerning the case.
Okay. Is there a reason why you didn't bring any of the other documents that were requested?
Well, I didn't get this whatever you call this notice of deposition. So
All right.
obviously, if I didn't get it, I can't bring them.
Right. And just let me say as counsel that Dr. Bessent has brought everything responsive to the notice that we feel is discoverable and appropriate.
But before today, you've never seen the notice of deposition and never seen the list of documents that we asked for you to bring. Would that be fair?
Well, I still don't know what the list of documents is, because like you said, it's not included in this, so I don't know what you've asked for.
Okay. What we did ask for is copies of any medical articles, textbooks, journals that you've relied upon in formulating any of your opinions. Have you relied upon any medical articles, journals, or textbooks for the opinions that you're about to give today?
No.
Okay. Do you find that there are any medical textbooks, articles, journals, or other medical literature that is reasonably reliable or authoritative for the medical issues involved in this case?
Well, first of all, reasonably reliable and authoritative are kind of probably, in my mind, they're two different things. There are certainly articles out there that are very reasonable. Anything that is published, whether it be in book form, which often is out of date by the time it's published, versus electronics, which is more up to date, has to be reviewed on an individual basis. So, but since I haven't relied on any specific article, I have no authoritative sources that I would be willing to comment on today.
Okay. Doctor, did you bring with you any documents that would demonstrate the amount of income that you earn for forensic medical legal work, such as testifying in medical malpractice cases?
I didn't bring any documents. I've, no problem telling people that certainly it's less than 5%, and, last year I think I probably made less than $30,000 in malpractice.
All right. And has that figure been the same for approximately the same for the last 5 years?
I think it perhaps might have been a little bit more. Last year I did not have any cases that went to trial. They tend to bump up your income a little bit.
And did you bring with you any deposition testimonies for depositions that you've given in the past?
Which we object to. Go ahead.
No, I don't keep those things.
You don't have them in your possession?
No.
Okay. And how about copies of any trial testimony for any trials that you testified to in the past?
Once the case is closed, it gets shredded.
Okay. Doctor, I see you brought with you what we've marked as Exhibit Number 4 is a defendant's certificate of qualified expert. Can you tell me when you signed that document?
Let's see. No, I can't tell you exactly when I signed it, because it would have been, I would have signed it before it was submitted, I think, to the arbitration panel.
Do you have the approximate month? Can you give me some idea?
No, I can't tell
You
you.
can't? Okay. Can you give me an idea when you were first contacted in this case by a defense attorney?
I would say the first correspondence I have, and it says, in follow-up to your telephone conference with our office today, so I would probably say April of 2013.
Okay. So the expert certificate that's marked as Exhibit Number 4, was that prepared after the April 13th contact?
Objection.
April 2013 contact?
Probably so, yes.
Okay. Other than Exhibit Number 4, were there any drafts to that expert certificate?
Objection form.
Not that I recall.
Okay. And how was that performed? Prepared? Did you write it out and sign it? Did the defense attorney write it out for you and ask you to sign it? How did that happen?
We had a discussion. Since I don't have a secretary, I usually, the way I do these things is that we kind of mirror the comments, and I'm including the written report that is along with this. And I review the case, I've discussed it with the attorneys involved, and I kind of dictate this report over the telephone. It's typed, and then I usually get a call, they read it to me, and I say, that's reasonable, and it's sometimes faxed to me, sometimes sent by mail, I sign it and return it.
Okay. And do you believe that's what happened in this case?
Yeah, I think so, because one of the other things here was my wife, who does serve as my secretary sometimes, was faxing back in a report to Ms. Dinsmore with regards to this certificate.
Okay, and what is the date of that fax?
That date of that fax is 5/9/13.
So can we adduce from the date of the fax that you've reached the opinions that were contained in the expert certificate as of 5/9/2013?
Certainly by that date.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. All right, Doctor, how long have you been serving as an expert witness in medical malpractice?
I've been
matters?
doing this since about 1978.
Okay, and what fields of medicine are you board certified in?
I'm board certified currently in internal medicine and emergency medicine. At one point, I thought I was interested in medical management, and I actually took and passed the board of medical management, but that's, I don't know whether it lapsed or I still have it, but I don't even list it.
Okay, and do you know when you first took your boards for emergency medicine?
I'd have to look, I think it's 1983. In other words, there was, when I first started, there was no residency training, there was, and you had to work 5 years, I think it was, to a certain number of hours and CMEs before you could become kind of track qualified to take the examination. And I think it was 1983, subsequently I've been recertified in 93, 2002, and I was recertified in 2010. So this actually, the copy of this CV lacks that last certification.
Okay, and for each time that you had to sit for board certifications, did you pass your certifications on the first attempt?
The very first time I took my orals twice because I didn't do some of the things I was supposed to do, like
Now-
introduce myself and talk with families and things like that.
So in 1983, you had to take the oral exams twice before you passed the orals, correct?
Correct, yes.
And board certification requires both a written and oral examination?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Are you licensed to practice medicine in any other state other than Maryland?
No.
Have you ever testified as an expert witness in any other state other than Maryland?
I have.
And what are those states, Doctor?
I've testified in Delaware. I've testified in Pennsylvania. Testified in West Virginia. And kind of the contiguous states that kind of Maryland residents are close. And then I have actually been in 2 other states. I have been in Oklahoma and Indiana.
And have you ever been retained as an expert witness in states other than the states that you just testified to wherein the case didn't go to trial?
Yes, I've done 1 or 2 cases in Florida. I've done a case in Ohio.
Okay. And for the cases where you actually testified as a witness, were you testifying on behalf of a defendant doctor or on behalf of the injured patient?
Both.
Can you break it down for me?
Sure. In fact, I'll break down the whole thing and save some questions. I would say that 90% of my work is defense, 10% is plaintiff. I give 4 depositions per year. I go to trial once or twice per year, and the breakdown would be, again, 90-10.
And can you tell me the last 2 times you testified in trial where they were, approximately what date?
Yeah, Indiana would be 2 years ago. And I think I had a case in Baltimore County 2 years ago. Last year, I don't recall going to court.
Okay. Have you ever testified in the state of Maryland against a doctor?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And when was that?
Oh, I'd say probably been 3 or 4 years since I've done that.
Do you remember the case, and do you remember what the issues were?
The case, I can't remember the issues, was a pulmonary emboli.
And against what doctor or hospital or facility?
It was, I think it was Frederick Memorial. That was the facility. I have no idea what the doctor's name is.
Did the patient die?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Have you ever provided expert testimony before with respect to the specific issues in this case?
There is a case that I was involved with that I'm not sure whatever happened with it. I mean, somebody sent me the records, and it had to deal with somebody who had sustained a dislocated knee. It was on the Eastern Shore. I know that Roy Caldry's office was involved, and I kind of gave my opinion, and that was the kind of the extent of what I heard about the case.
Okay. Was there an actual lawsuit filed?
Like I said, I don't
You don't know.
I don't know.
Do you know if you were testifying for the doctor or the patient in that case?
That was for the doctor.
Doctor.
And I'm sorry, just to be clear, did you testify in that case or just review records?
Reviewed records. No, I didn't testify.
Was there any deposition taken?
Not of me.
Not of you?
I don't recall that.
Okay. Doctor, have you ever held yourself out as an expert in the field of medicine other than internal medicine and emergency medicine?
I have testified, I will testify with regards to hospital perspectives of things, but it deals with emergency department, or there was a time when I was actively involved in medical staff issues, and I testified that, but beyond that, no.
Okay. And for those occasions where you have been identified as an expert witness and/or actually testified an expert witness at the trial, has any court ever rendered a ruling that you cannot give expert testimony on the standard of care?
No.
All right, Doctor, I'm going to go over some of the opinions that you may or may not have in this case. And would I be true, is it true that you are not of the opinion that Mr. Tolson was negligent in this case, or did or failed to do something that caused or contributed to his injuries?
No, I don't think he did anything that contributed to his injuries.
All right. Do you also agree that Mr. Tolson cooperated fully with the nursing and medical providers at St. Agnes Hospital on December 3rd, 2009?
I have no reason not to think he wasn't fully cooperative.
Okay. And would it be fair to say that you are not of the opinion that Mr. Tolson sustained a traumatic injury to his knee, structures of his knee, or popliteal artery from the time he was discharged from St. Agnes on December 3rd to the time he returned to St. Agnes on December 5th?
I'm going to object to the form and the lack of foundation.
Kind of the negative.
Yeah.
Now that-
All right, let me ask it another way. Let me step back. Are you of the opinion that Mr. Tolson sustained a traumatic injury to his knee, the structures of his knee, or his popliteal artery from the time he left St. Agnes on December 3rd until the time he came back to St. Agnes on December 5th?
No, I have nothing that would indicate that there was a subsequent secondary injury.
Okay. Are you of the opinion that Mr. Tolson did sustain a traumatic injury to the internal structures of his knee and to his popliteal artery as a result of him being trapped in the fence, the gate, on December 3rd, 2009?
In retrospect, absolutely yes.
Okay. And did you happen to see the MRI or know of the results of the MRI that was taken at University of Maryland Hospital on December 9th that showed the damage to the ligamentous structures inside his knee?
Object to the form.
The only way that I know it was when I read the deposition of the radiologist. Was it
Woodruff.
Woodruff?
Okay.
That's I did not get anything that would give me any information.
All right. Do you intend to interpret any of the radiology studies that were taken in this case?
No, I would not interpret, certainly not the MRIs, or if they're CAT scans, the answer to that is clearly no. If somebody put up standard x-rays, emergency physicians read such as x-rays, but there's no reason for me to disagree with the official reports provided by the radiologist.
Okay. And I believe one of the discs you brought with us today were actually the radiology studies from December the 3rd,
Yes.
2009. Did you have a chance to look at those?
No, I didn't, because I have a laptop, and laptop doesn't take the disc.
Okay. Did you look at the report of that study?
There are a number of studies from the 5th.
I'm talking about the 3rd, I'm sorry.
The third, yes,
The third.
the very first visit. Yes, there was X-rays of, I think, 5 separate X-rays, and I looked at the reports.
Okay. And doctor, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand you what's marked as exhibit number 3, and this is the medical chart from December 3rd, 2009.
Okay.
And you're free to refer to that if you have to in order to answer my questions.
Certainly.
Okay, can I
And-
just see that for a second?
If that's the one we're going to use rather than...
I think it may be the same as the one you have, but I'm just not absolutely sure.
I haven't been warm since Christmas.
It's still cold.
While Ms. McGuire is looking through that exhibit, doctor, on your own form there, could you find the radiologist report from the X-rays? I have it at page 24 on mine, but I don't know what it might be on yours.
No, it's not, so that's why
Okay.
I'll wait for that.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Well, let's take your time. I have it on.
Okay.
Why don't we just use yours? That way, there's no confusion of, because mine, I knew we weren't off the same thing, because these have Bates numbers and mine have handwritten numbers.
Sure.
Yeah, all right. Yes, this is what I had previously looked at.
Okay, and I'm going to draw your attention to the left knee findings, where the radiologist says there appears to be mild to moderate left knee joint effusion without fracture or subluxation or arthritic change. Doctor, is it your opinion that the fluid that was discovered in and around Mr. Tolson's left knee joint that was found by the radiologist on the X-ray of December 3rd, 2009, was fluid from an acute injury?
I believe that's reasonable to conclude.
And do you believe it's reasonable to include that it was from the acute injury that Mr. Tolson sustained at his place of employment when his left leg and knee got trapped in the fence?
Correct.
Okay. And that fluid, do you also believe more likely than not it was a combination of fat and blood?
Objection.
Objection.
Foundation.
There's, not having looked at it, most likely it was blood. I'm not sure that I could make a comment that there was any fat there. You'd have to see fat particles and globules, and that's what you see with major fractures of shafts of bones and things like that. I don't.
Okay. And do you believe that the blood was caused from the trauma from the fence?
Yes.
Yeah. Doctor, can you tell me what opinions that you've reached in this case with respect to standard of care as to Ms. Shaw and Dr. Jackson? And then if you're going to render opinions with respect to any other medical provider or nurse, I would also need those as well. So let's start with Ms. Shaw as the physician's assistant.
Sure.
Okay, I'm just going to object to the form. Go ahead.
What I was going to say is, why don't we define the standard of care? Standard of care is what a similar physician or PA would do in similar circumstances. And that's my definition of what standard of care is. And I plan to testify that Ms. Shaw met the standard of care in her evaluation and treatment of Mr. Tolson. With regards to Dr. Jackson, my opinions will be the same. It has been my opinion and practice that since emergency department cases often involve not only physicians but the hospital and its staff, that when I'm asked, and this has been confirmed by counsel, that my opinions will be solely limited to those two individuals and their corporate sponsors. But I'm not going to be talking about the nurses or St. Agnes Hospital.
Okay. What did the standard of care require Ms. Shaw for her treatment of Mr. Tolson on December 3rd, 2009? What was she required to do? What evaluations was she required to perform? If you could explain those for me.
Certainly.
Object to the form. Go ahead.
Yeah. What I've done this successfully for a number of years, that my standard of care and the way I look at any case consists of the following 8 steps. Any PA or any physician, when they evaluate a patient, need to, 1, take an appropriate history, 2, do an appropriate physical examination, 3, in their mind, create a reasonable differential diagnosis, 4, order ancillary studies, 5, interpret those studies properly, 6, make a reasonable diagnosis, 7, render appropriate care at that point, and 8, arrange for follow-up. And if you complete those 8 steps, you have met the standard of care.
Okay. When a physician's assistant, such as Ms. Shaw, takes an appropriate history, what does that consist of?
Well, your history and appropriate, that means that you are focusing your attention at the immediate problem, and you try to identify that problem with as much information as possible.
Do you agree that the most important rule in emergency medicine is to accurately diagnose a situation that's brought someone to the emergency department?
Objection to form. Foundation.
As far as a general statement, I can't disagree with that.
Okay. Now, with respect to the history, does a history include ascertaining the mechanism of injury from the patient?
Absolutely, to the best of your knowledge, to the best of your capacity and the patient's ability to answer that question.
And to the best of a physician's capacity, would that also include, if possible, to speak with the paramedics that brought the patient into the emergency room, if they are still present at the time the physician's assistant does her initial examination?
If they can render additional information and they're there, certainly you want to avail yourself of that opportunity.
And how about reading the ambulance report that the paramedics bring with them and supply to the triage nurse at the time the patient's wheeled into the emergency room?
If it is-
Objection to foundation and your assumption it's supplied to the triage nurse, but go ahead.
If,
Same objections.
if the ambulance report is available and readable, one should look at that information.
Do you know whether Ms. Shaw looked at the ambulance report that was contained in the medical chart in this case?
I don't recall whether you asked her that specific question. I will say, and I don't know whether it's in the packet that we had, the packet that I had sent to me, the ambulance report, which back then would have been the 3rd copy, it's pink, is just totally unreadable, which is not uncommon. It's what I usually find happens in the emergency reports that are left by the EMTs.
Okay. So at least Ms. Shaw should have at least looked for the ambulance report and read it, if it was legible. You would agree with that?
Objection.
I think that's reasonable.
Okay. All right. Now, if she had if the ambulance report had been legible, would you agree that Ms. Shaw would have learned the contents that was in the narrative on page 2 of the report.
Well,
Hold on, objective foundation and your assumption is available. Go ahead.
had this easily readable copy been available to her, yes, she should have read it.
Okay. If that copy was not legible, would it be reasonable for Ms. Shaw to have then asked the